And you always knew that you wanted to write it in a novel form as opposed to short stories, or?
Yes, I actually, I started out with a couple of pieces as a memoir, and then it just took on a life of its own and became novel.
Were there I mean, some of us, I don't do it, but a lot of my writer friends will, when they sit down at the desk, read a certain writer every day to get into a certain rhythm, or always have a writerly presence on their shoulder who's their inspiration. Did you have influences like that, or did you try just to keep your mind clear of that?
I kept my mind clear of that. I would wake up in I would wake up in the middle of the night every night at 3 o'clock, and it was either watch the ceiling or get up, get a cup of tea, and start writing. And so that's how I started.
That's a good sign. Yeah? I mean, you were living in that world entirely.
Yeah, and it was at night. There was my husband, my kids were all asleep. Everything was really quiet,
Yes.
so it was a really wonderful space to just. So I was like, okay, we're visiting Serena. So.
Yeah, because I mean, you're a busy mom and you have a busy life, so it's lucky that you had that 3 a.m. space in which you could write without the other responsibilities. But I think that's every writer dreams of being in that state, where even when you're sleeping, something is forming. I know Graham Greene always used to read what he'd written in the morning before he went to sleep, so that he would wake up with all the answers solved by the subconscious while he's sleeping.
Yeah, that's
it's
great.
Like outsourcing it to Bangalore, but he's outsourcing it to the subconscious.
That's great.
But why? The subconscious works better than Bangalore, I'd say.
That's great.
But it's a hard thing, though, in writing, isn't it? Knowing how much to leave to chance, as it were. Because there are a lot of scenes here where you take wonderful risks, and suddenly there are kind of visions, or after the grandmother dies, suddenly she's right there next to Serena. And that's wonderful, because that's the kind of thing it's hard to do.
That is actually cultural. In Curacao, it's very common for people to think that somebody visited them from the dead and then came to visit me and was standing by my bed. That's actually cultural. It's very... And if somebody's going to die, they'll pinch you. And so if you have a black and blue mark, then you know and say, oh, kinipidi morto, somebody is going to die. And it'll be a black and blue mark that's huge, that is that you haven't run into anything, you haven't hurt yourself.
Really? Spirits. Well, one of the great things that Omar, the grandmother, brings to this book is she has such a strong sense of souls, and she talks about souls. And souls have a whole dimension beyond what we think of as people. And that's another thing that the girls bring into somewhat secular Los Angeles. And it's as if they're kind of four-dimensional people in a two-dimensional world, and it's very exciting. So, what was the language that you just quoted from?
That's from Papiamento, from
Is it
Curacao.
Really? So you that's second nature to you as well as the other. And that's the language in which they talk to the gods, I believe. Is that
that's
right?
the language that is the Curacao language, and that's part of their whole cultural.
Though probably, if you're doing a driving test or something in Curacao, would it be in Dutch? Or?
No, it used to be. Everything used to be in Dutch. Our books used to come from Holland, and they used to have snow and apples and strawberries. And we would be reading this and going, we really are, we must be in hell, because we only have sun and, and mangoes and bananas, and all our books were completely Dutch, but not now. Now we have a university in Papiamento, and we have the schools that are in Papiamento. The problem is if you have elementary school and high school in Papiamento, it's very difficult to go abroad and really get a good education. Although we learn English and Spanish in 4th and 5th grade. And then Dutch was the main language. I think right now they learn Dutch probably simultaneously, but not...
But so I'm guessing even in those old days, you had your official life in Dutch. Yes. As it were, you had your dream life or your spiritual life in Papiamento, probably.
Right. Well, my mother's family was from Curacao, and my aunts and uncles, Papiamento was their primary language. So if I went to her family's house, that was the language that was spoken. But as soon as I left her family's house and we were in my mom's territory with my dad's territory, it was Dutch. And she forbade us to speak beyond her mother's house, that language. She's like, you've got to speak Dutch. You're Dutch.
And part of this sense of people being in constant movement is that, for example, Omar, the grandmother, bears 9 children, and 8 of them have left Curacao. That's probably still the case, isn't it?
It's very much the case.
They're still seeking American dreams or European dreams or whatever.
And there aren't that many jobs. It's a small country, so there's only room for so many, so most of the people leave. And there are a lot of immigrants, so it's constantly changing and moving.
So people are used to being away from their loved ones, being abandoned by their loved ones.
There's a lot of traveling back and forth. It's a great place to go vacation.
Yes.
So people come back to vacation, and then if they have family there, they stay at their houses. So whoever lives there has a lot of visitors.
Yes. So I'm guessing even as a young woman coming to California, you must have felt that you had access to this whole other universe in all senses.
Yeah, and for example, another thing in Papiamento is a very, very particular language. It's a lovely language. When you're sick in Papiamento, you say your body is sick. So there's a separation from the soul and the body. There is many little things like that where there is an awareness of a spiritual life, or something greater than. Not quite like Spanish. It's very different.
Yes.
But it's its own unique.
The gods are African, I'm guessing, as in Haiti or Cuba.
African and Arawak Indian.
Yes.
Curacao had a lot of Arawak Indians, so that Aruba and Venezuela is right there, and that's all Arawak Indian territory.
Well, I want to give everyone else a chance to ask you, but just one more question I have to ask, which is, are you, like the rest of us unfortunates, so possessed by the writing excitement that you're already thinking of the next book? Or?
I have a couple of projects that I'm working on, and I'm trying to, sort of.
So you really enjoy it?
Yeah, I love the process. I love the process, and definitely.
There's no substitute for it, I don't think.
I love the process.
And Graham Greene again said he didn't know quite how people could live without it, just as a way of sorting through your experience, understanding it. Yeah. In this case, understanding people like Mama, if you had such a person in your life. Yes. It's through the writing that you travel into her heart and see her from the inside.
Yeah, very much so.
Well, I've been dominating, Patricia. Yes, there's a question right over here.
Thank you. Thank you.